Today we're talking no prep drag racing. What's going on, everyone? Today we've got an all new type of project on the bench for me, and that is a no prep drag racing vehicle. The base that we've got here in front is the team associated DB10. This was the trophy rat version. I've used the DB10 in the past, and that was the Reflex actually, and that's the one that we used for the monthly Mayhem challenge where we attempted to make those fly and pretty much failed miserably. But I think this project is already off to a much better start. Now, the no prep drag racing in a nutshell is taking a short course truck, usually narrowing up a little bit, putting on some drag racing tires, a 2S lipo, some sort of drag racing body, and running 132 feet. Now, I've done all of those things with the exception of that body. At this point, I've still got this trophy rat body on there because I think it looks pretty cool and I think it still looks scale. Now, it doesn't fit the rules of having tire coverage. I'm not all that worried about that. I think that I'll be able to test and tune with this thing without any problems and probably race locally without any concern or issues as well. If I want to go do something more official, then I do have a Proline Nova body that I can slap on this thing. But the conversion in general for this vehicle was really easy. I removed the rear factory arms and replaced them with a set of B5 rear arms. Those are significantly narrower. I did take some measurements kind of before and after. Now, of course, there's also some differences with tire and wheel offsets and widths, but just kind of gives you an idea of what our overall width now is compared to how this thing came out of the box. This truck is normally intended to be a basher, so the stance and the way that you see it here is much different than how it normally looks when you would see this vehicle out in the wild. Now, with those narrower rear arms, we also needed to replace the camber links in the rear as well as the rear dog bones. Since we took a significant amount of width out of each side, we weren't going to be able to just adjust that out of there. So we replaced those camber links in the rear with some titanium parts from Team Associated as well as some rear dog bones. Super easy, super straightforward. This vehicle in general, just very easy to work with. Now, you can use the factory rear shocks. However, I'm going by some suggestions by John Schultz from Team Associated, who has been successfully racing his DB10 in the no prep. Those guys have been doing extremely well with this platform. So leveraging my friendship with him to kind of garner the knowledge in an area of RC that I really don't have any knowledge in yet was very helpful. So what he suggested is that I take a set of front shock bodies, use them in the rear, and replace the shock shafts with a set of front shock shafts as well. Pretty easy to do. I disassembled the factory rear shocks, emptied out all of the oil. I reused all of the seals. So I was very careful when disassembling those, trying not to tear anything on any of the threads. I transferred the factory piston from the rear shocks over to the new titanium nitride front shock shaft for the use in the rear, and reassembled everything with a little bit of Team Associated green slime and refilled the shock bodies with some 90 weight shock oil. Currently, I've got the factory rear shock springs installed on these shocks. As we go, as I learn, as I test, I'm sure that we'll be doing some spring rate testing, tuning, length changes, a bunch of that. But for now, we just got it up and rolling. So that basically sorted out the rear. I haven't gone through and done a bunch of camber tweaking or making sure that everything is just spot on. Did a little bit of measuring with some calipers just to make sure that I was in the ballpark on each side. But as I get a little bit further into it, I'll make sure and just check and double check to try and make sure that everything is square and even around the entire vehicle. Moving to the front, again, a very similar situation. Removed the front factory A-arms and replaced those with a set of B5 front A-arms. And then we replaced the camber links and tie rods with a set of Team Associated titanium turnbuckles. Now, normally this change in width is done to accommodate the popular bodies that are being released for drag racing. I do believe that there are bodies available for full width setups in case you just want to throw a set of tire and wheels on the vehicle in factory trim, but for me, not the way that I wanted to go. And speaking of tires and wheels, I do have Proline tires and wheels all the way around on this thing currently. Now, in the rear, I've got the Proline Reaction tires. Those are the belted version of their drag tires. They also have a standard Hoosier set, which I also have. Now, I've got these in a couple of different compounds each. That way, based on being a no prep situation. Maybe one set of tires will work better on the surface than another. For now, I've got the reactions on there. We're gonna try that non-ballooning style setup. As far as the actual power system in this vehicle goes, I've left that completely factory for now. Probably a little bit too slow to really be competitive in this style of racing, but I'm going to use it and tune with it for now to just try and get myself acclimated with the vehicle, with being able to tune a little bit, maybe with a little bit slower setup. While normal racing is limited to 2S, I can also throw a 3S battery in this just to see how the car is handling with a little bit more power. Once we get a little bit further down the road, we will replace the motor and ESC with something that is going to be a little bit on the hotter setup. Currently for the 2S pack, I've got a Gens Ace Adventure Series pack. This is a 2S 100C battery. So it should have plenty of amperage to support the current Wheelie system that's in there, as well as have some headroom possibly for a later, more powerful system. But I also have a little bit higher end battery coming from the Gens Ace or Tattoo side. It's a 6500 120C 2S pack that is Roar approved, should fit nicely into this chassis, have lots of punch for that more powerful system that we will be adding. Currently, the stock servo is in there, and for now, I probably don't see a reason that I plan to change that. I did change out the receiver. Now, the factory receiver on this did have a gyro installed, and that's not allowed in no prep, but that's not the reason that I removed it. I removed it because I'm going to be using my Futaba 4PM radio. I just like that radio. I replaced the stock receiver with a 2106 GF. It's kind of my go-to receiver. It's one of the least expensive Futaba receivers. It works great with the Futaba 4PM, and it's got a lot of open ports. And I am actually using one of the auxiliary ports on that, and for a reason. Now, being that I want to do video series on this and kind of track my progress and things like that, I wanted a way to track the timing for myself. Now, there's a number of ways to do that, including full timing setups like the old Traxxas version. Not something I'm looking to invest in, but I went with a little bit more rudimentary way, but a way that I think is going to be much easier and still work really well. And what that was is actually utilizing the factory LEDs that come in this trophy wrap body. Now, this vehicle comes with front and rear LEDs pre-installed that just power off of the receiver. What I decided to do was use a light controller that I had here that powers straight off of the receiver. So I plugged that light controller into channel 3, and then I did what is called a mix with my throttle. So I have it set up where when you apply the throttle in the forward direction, it mixes that throttle channel with channel 3 where I have that light controller and turns on my headlights. But I think that's going to be an easy way where I don't have to try and sync multiple cameras to get that information. I can be able to set something up, hit it, and it'll just go. I can just use the frame rate of the video that I use, even at 120 or 240 to get really accurate with it. And for me, it will be good data that I can capture in a very easy way. I don't think that that's probably something that most people will need or have any interest in doing. But for myself and for doing a video series, to be able to have a little bit of analytic data that is accurate within a fairly low margin, I think that it's worth the time. Now, along with all of the work that we did with getting this narrowed and putting the wheels and tires, one thing that was an easy cosmetic modification was simply taking this stock body and lowering it as far as we could. In the factory trim, it's made to be a basher, and it's, they want it out of the way. What I did is I basically slammed the body mounts all the way around and was able to get this body sitting way further down on the chassis, and I think it makes for a drastic improvement in the stance. Now, I think currently in the front, we're a little lacking on clearance, and I think on, a heavy bump or things like that, I could catch the front of that body. So I'll probably end up doing a little bit of trimming in that area. And the last modification at this step in the build was adding a wheelie bar. Wheelie bars are key to getting these vehicles to launch straight and go fast. Now, since there isn't a bolt-on solution for the DB10 at this point, what I did is picked up the 7-inch RJ Speed. This thing was made out of basically flat, G10 or something along those lines. All it required was me drilling 2 holes 10 millimeters apart in the front, bolted it into some existing holes that mount the transmission to the chassis. Then in the rear, what I did is I basically picked up the car, pushed it down, saw where it set, and then I could measure a link that I needed to brace this wheelie bar since it's fairly flexible. Now I went to my bins of takeoff links that I've had for years and just started finding something that was close. I drilled an extra hole back by the rear wheel of the wheelie bar and then found a very convenient spot to mount the other end of that support link. There was a spacer for the rear motor guard. I was able to just remove that, place the Vanquish rod end between it instead, replace the screw. Super simple. This link overall is about 6 inches eye to eye. I did a little bit of adjusting just to make sure that I had about the amount of clearance that I wanted underneath of that rear wheel when it was sitting where I thought it should. I've got it sitting basically a few millimeters off of the ground after it kind of rebounds slightly from a compressed position. Now, before I go out there and do my initial tuning, I do have a few other things that I do plan to do, such as make sure that the car is square all the way around, make sure that my camber links and drag links are all equal length where they need to be so that this car is tracking it the best it can. I'll also be doing a little bit of tuning to that stock rear differential based on some suggestions that I've got from John Schultz. So we are going to play around with that. This is something that I'm going to need to pick up differential fluids and things like that for. I'm used to vehicles with locked axles, so that is not something that I've got a wide assortment of. And beyond that, there is no shortage of other fun tasks and tuning items that I plan to try and tackle on this vehicle to make it perform the best it can. There's a pretty good scene of these vehicles popping up here in the Northern California area. So I think that we're gonna have some fun competitions locally, cash day or call out style. So hopefully this side of it interests some of you guys in the scale aspect. And I think that all of us are interested in going fast in some ways. So I figure why not? This isn't all that expensive of an area to get into. Of course, you can just keep spending money on crazy power systems and fine tuning this and that, you know, just like anything else. But if you can find another buddy or a group locally that you think you can set up something like this, I think it sounds like a good time, and I'm excited to see how this continues. I'm obviously by no means early to the party in this segment, but I think I'll have as much fun as anybody. So let me know what you guys think. If you've been doing this, you've been interested in doing it, what you think we should do. I think that it will fit well into our style and, you know, just the nature of things that I like to do myself. So hopefully it interests you guys as well. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And while we're at it, let's just predict how much faster I'm going to be than Matt. But as always, I appreciate all of you guys for watching. Hit the like button if you enjoyed these videos. Subscribe if you're not already. Hit the notification bell so you see the videos as soon as they get uploaded. Once again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.